How do you travel through a country with over 7,000 islands, barely any public transportation, and roads that sometimes just kind of suddenly disappear? I'm of course talking about the Philippines. Well, I've got the answers, and trust me, they'll save you money, time, and energy. When I plan my trips, I usually plan two things: where I'm gonna sleep and how I'm gonna get there. And most of the time, I want at least a basic level of comfort because I'm not into the whole barefoot, no money thing. By the way, my name is Martin, and I've been living all over Asia for the past 3.5 years with my wife Masha. We went to the Philippines in January 2025, and when I was planning this trip, I got overwhelmed because, normally I travel to countries where you get city to city by land. Well, this is an island country, so how do I even plan this? How do I know which planes go where? How do I know how much it costs? What if the islands I want to go to are really close together? What do I do? So it took me a lot of time to just kind of navigate all of this, and this gave me an idea to make this video for you. The number one option for island hopping is flights. When you arrive in the country, you'll most likely arrive in Manila or Cebu, one of the major cities. Where after that, it's fairly easy to get to your next destination because Manila and Cebu are kind of major hubs as far as the country goes, and from there, just about anywhere you can fly to with Cebu Pacific Airlines or Philippine Airlines. The first one, the former, is the kind of like the local low-coster, and honestly, it's really cheap. Like, it took me only $57 to fly from Manila to Puerto Princesa, and like 28 bucks per person to fly from Puerto Princesa to Cebu. Puerto Princesa is a town on the beautiful island of Palawan. So that's the good news. The bad news is that this is without any luggage, and it only covers about 7 kilogram carry-on. Of course, there are options to purchase different bundles with luggage, with check-in luggage, but with carry-on, unfortunately, there is no option to purchase more. Unlike AirAsia, for example. AirAsia is probably my favorite airline, my favorite low-coster in Asia, because again, they're very flexible. Other than that, Cebu Pacific is great, super friendly, fun to fly. They have like some competitions and games on board, and generally the employees are very friendly, and we haven't really gotten delayed or like canceled anywhere even once. So Cebu Pacific Airlines is your airline to go. Well, their flight map, although it does cover most of the Philippines, and Cebu Pacific is generally a great way to get around the country. If, however, you want to get from Manila, say, to Siquijor, then you're not going to be able to fly because I don't think there is even an airport in Siquijor, to be honest. Well, when flights aren't an option, ferries come into play, and that's probably the most popular option for less traveled routes or islands that are close together. The good news is that if you're traveling between islands that are kind of popular, like for example, if you're traveling between Cebu and Bohol or Siquijor, then yes, of course, there will be ferries there. But what if you're in the middle of the island of Samar and you're trying to get to Bicol? I think that's how you pronounce it, Legazpi, for example. Well, if you use Rome to Rio, unfortunately, it's going to give you a pretty awkward route, right? So might be a little off-putting at first. I found a way around it. You go to Google Maps and you look for these blue dotted lines between islands and look at specific towns where the lines come from and get to. Then look for a route between those two specific towns, and after that input those town names into Rome to Rio and click search, of course, and find the ferry service provider that goes between those two specific towns. Most of the time, it's really easy to get ferry tickets in the Philippines. There are a lot of ferry companies in the Philippines. Some of the major ones are Starlight, Fastcat, or OceanJet. Between Cebu and Bohol and Siquijor, we used OceanJet. You just go to the website, put in your information, input your destination, choose the class. You have options for tourist class, open air, or business class. I just booked tourist class because why not? And it costs about, well, between Cebu and Bohol, it costs like 15 bucks. And if you do business class, it's going to cost you twice as much. Go to the ferry website directly and book with the service directly. One thing about the ocean jet ferries though is that, okay, yeah, it's pretty easy. You do get your ticket in the mail and everything, well, in the email. Well, then it gets a bit fun. You take your PDF, you show it to the guard at the port. Then you have to go to a cashier and pay your mooring fees. Then there's the second guard whom you have to show that you've paid your mooring fees. After the second guard, you go through the security gate where your luggage is checked. After they check your luggage, you have to go to the check-in where you show your PDF that you got in the email and they issue you a paper ticket. After you pay your mooring fees, you take your paper ticket, then you get to the waiting area, and then the third guard will check your tickets again before you get on the actual ferry. So yeah, it does take a bit to get to the actual ferry, but well, it is what it is. So this is generally how you travel between islands, either planes or ferries, and all of that, although could be intimidating and unusual at first, is actually pretty easy once you figure it out. Well, then you get to your island. Now what do you do? Because the Philippines has no railroad service and public transport is either slow or non-existent. Of course, you could take jeepneys if you travel short distance, and sure, they're fun and stylish and cool looking, but probably not the best option if you got any luggage, and definitely not the best option if you're going long distance. Same goes for tuk-tuks, which there are a lot of all over the country, and tricycles, which I will talk about a little more in this video later on. Although we did manage to fit ourselves and our two big backpacks into one, and that was pretty fun actually. In some places though, you could take the Calesa and add some style to your trip. Another option potentially is coach buses, but then you have to somehow get to the coach bus station, and they do take time, and you have to rely on their schedule. You could of course go with a personal guide, but that means you have to pay more. Plus, that also means that you have another person in the car, and I just kind of like my own vibe and, you know, whoever I'm going with. I don't want to deal with extra people. That's just me. But you could also try hitchhiking, but this leaves you with two options, motorbikes or cars. Well, motorbikes are the favorite option for travelers all over Asia. They're super cheap. I've rented them myself. It's very easy. But here's the deal. If you don't know how to ride one, take lessons, seriously. For safety, for knowing what you're doing, the Philippines and generally on the spot is not the best place to learn most of the time. Plus, if you don't have a license, even though a lot of rental shops, they don't really check for one, you will be breaking the law if you drive without a motorbike license, and that is not a good idea. Another thing about the bikes is that they're not ideal for long distances. They are slower than a car, of course, and they do get a little tiring after a few dozen kilometers, especially if you have a passenger and luggage. But the number one reason I don't like taking motorbikes for long distance travel is safety. Aside from the fact that you're not protected from the elements by anything, almost everyone I know has fallen from a motorbike at least once, myself including, and it's usually painful. If you're lucky, you'll just lose some skin. If you're not lucky, well... So since I was traveling with two more people and some luggage, renting a car made way more sense. Well, that also can be intimidating because, you know, you're in Asia. How do you do it? How do you find a car, and what is driving like? The first thing I'm gonna say is I wouldn't go with Hertz or Alamo or companies like that. They often charge way more than necessary. Of course, if that's your only option, then why not? But instead, go on Google, look for highly rated businesses, local businesses, and message them directly via WhatsApp. They are very responsive, and most of them will deliver the car straight to wherever you are. We rented a total of 5 cars over the course of our 23-day trip. And by the way, if you're curious about what our itinerary was, check out this video on how to plan your trip around the Philippines. Well, we rented 5 cars on the islands of Palawan, Bohol, Siquijor, Luzon, the southeasternmost part, Bicol, I think it's pronounced, and Ilocos Norte. The price varied between 1,500 and 2,000 peso per day, which adds up to around 30 to 40 bucks or so. The most rental car was a Toyota Vios, and it's a lovely car. It's a little four-cylinder, very maneuverable, very forgiving, very comfortable. I loved it. The procedure for renting a car is more or less the same. They do take a photo of your driver's license, and they kind of go with you to take a look if there's any damage to the car, like scratches and the like, and they kind of mark off the scratches that the car already has. Then they check the fuel and the mileage, etc., etc. It's pretty much the same every time. So you get the car, but now what do? Because this is a different country, and this is a very different country to drive in if you compare it to Western countries. So here are some pro tips for driving in the Philippines. Number one, especially true for Palawan, dogs. Dogs chill in the middle of the road, anywhere, everywhere, anytime, every time. Assume they won't move. They are very chill and they're kind of in their own zen space. So just be aware that there will be lots of doggies around and they're not aggressive, just kind of avoid them. Number two, also especially true for Palawan. Now, Palawan generally has great roads, probably some of the best quality roads in the Philippines. But the thing about Palawan is that right lanes will end abruptly. Like, seriously, you will be driving, down the highway, and then suddenly you'll hit a bridge and the right lane will just end without any signs, without any warning. So just be aware of that as well. Again, it's like I said, it's very different from Western countries. And another thing is that sometimes the locals will use the right lanes for drying fish or putting, I don't know, a sandwich stand or something like that. So do be aware and always keep your eyes peeled. It doesn't mean that it will just suddenly pop up. Palawan generally has, again, very nice roads, and you will see stuff like this from far away. Number three, I didn't really see this in Palawan, but I did see this in Siquijor in a couple of places. Pavement can also suddenly and abruptly end. Siquijor is a lot more rural and it's smaller, so it doesn't have these highways as Palawan does. You will generally be riding or driving around small roads, and then sometimes suddenly it will just turn unpaved. And a lot of the times that sucks because it will turn unpaved with a bit of a drop. So literally you'll be driving around, a nice road, nice rural road and everything. We are taking the main road which cuts the island in half, but I did try to take the road from the butterfly garden to the town of Maria, because my wife's name is Maria, which is, Masha is short for Maria. Anyway, and there's apparently like an old church there. So, but unfortunately didn't film it because I was a little too surprised. The asphalt road, kind of like the one that we're driving on now, just stopped, and with about I want to say like 7 to 10 inch drop off, just turned into a narrow, rocky, unpaved patch, and then turned back into asphalt again, which was a little weird. Oh wow, that's beautiful. Which was a little weird, but that's Asia for you. You never know. So you have to be really careful if you're driving a car and slow down for cases like that. Definitely don't speed on rural roads especially. Another thing you have to watch out for while driving in the Philippines is slow or fast drivers. And I know this sounds like a bit of a spread, but here's what I mean. In the Philippines, one of the means of transportation is tricycles. They are ubiquitous. Well, one thing about the tricycles, actually most of the time they're motorcycles with a sidecar, but they're different on different islands. Well, the thing about these tricycles is that a lot of times they are painful awfully slow. So if you actually want to get to your destination fast, you have to be aware of that. Generally, they don't mind if you pass them, and honestly, there's not a lot of aggression in Asia, actually pretty much none. Everybody just goes about their business. You're not going to find any road ragers, anything like that. It's very different and generally very polite. Everybody kind of understands what's going on and respects each other, and yeah, just do the same and you'll be fine. The fast drivers, I saw this in Palawan mostly, are the tour bus drivers. Well, these folks, they have to stick to their schedule and they will drive like crazy. If you're a passenger in one, I'm sorry. And this is one of the reasons that I didn't really like taking any tour buses, is because yes, they are crazy as far as driving goes. Of course, they do know their roads. Of course, it's because they're local. But putting your life in somebody else's hands, I don't know, I always feel iffy about that. So if you're just driving a rental and you have this tour bus pass you, just let them. They have, like I said, schedules to stick to. They're not trying to cut you off because they're being aggressive. They are simply trying to get to their destination as fast as possible. This has nothing to do with you. And another thing you have to watch out for, this goes for just about anywhere in the Philippines, well, most places at least, is random bouts of heavy rain. We did get hit with some heavy rain in Palawan and on Bohol, and sometimes it gets a little crazy. Like on Bohol, it got super crazy. I was kind of getting worried that, I don't know, are we gonna get flooded? Are we gonna get into an accident? Should I just wait it out on the shoulder? But no, it was okay. Just drive really slow and make sure that all your lights are on so that you're seen. And yeah, just be careful. But of course, if you feel that this is dangerous, put on your emergency lights and wait it out in a safe place, preferably not where there is a lot of fast-moving traffic. Maybe get lunch at some roadside restaurant. There are some really nice ones all over the place. I usually use Google for the best ratings and the most reviews, just to kind of make sure that I'm getting a good deal. The last thing I should mention is big cities. Manila specifically. I don't like Manila. I don't think it's a safe city, and I don't like walking around there after dark. Definitely not. During the afternoon it's okay, but for driving it is a very hectic city. Like, we were driving in a smaller town on Bohol, Tagbilaran, and it was pretty hectic. I did feel a little stressed. We were there because we had to get to a hospital because my wife needed to get rabies shots. I do have a video on that. Check it out. That was quite a trip, getting rabies shots in Asia. We started in Thailand and finished it in the Philippines. It was quite an adventure, and the best part of it was how much it cost. So check it out. But going back to Manila, if Tagbilaran was crazy, Manila can be a bit insane. There are a lot of drivers, there's a lot of traffic. Of course, everybody's trying to get somewhere, and this is Asia, so there is a degree of chaos to that. So I didn't want to drive, like I said, and what I did is I just used Grab everywhere. Grab taxi is like Southeast Asia's Uber. In most countries in Asia, Grab is your go-to option. In the Philippines, it works in Manila conveniently. So places you don't really want to drive in, just use Grab. However, if you don't feel like driving in Palawan, there is another application. It's called Backride, and it is a good option to get a tricycle or a motorbike. It is a good idea to download that application because often whatever hotel that you're staying in, whatever driver they have will overcharge you compared to the rates you'll get using this application. So that's all the tips I have for traveling around the Philippines. If I did miss something, please leave a comment below. I'm highly curious if I did actually miss something, but I'm sure it will also be useful for whoever's watching this video and trying to plan their trip in this beautiful country. And it's definitely a gorgeous country, and it's very much worth going. Also, please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. It will really help my channel grow, and it will help me make more useful videos for nomads, expats, and travelers like you. So thank you very much for watching, and stay nomad.